Early mainstream media reviews are in for Amazon's take on Tolkien's Middle-earth in their big-budget series Rings of Power, and many potential viewers, ranging from those who are excited or concerned about the series, are interested in these reviews so as to gauge whether the show is worthy of their investment of time and a subscription to Amazon Prime for its streaming service. Prior to this, a lot of those who have been treated to special event previews of the first 2 episodes were under a review embargo from Amazon, and there was only so much they could say. However, they hardly put forth any critiques at all, as most of the reviews said pretty much the same thing, namely that the show was absolutely beautiful and grand in scale, painting the show as the answer to the prayers of Tolkien fans. Now the embargo has been lifted, and though the first 2 episodes started out with a high 90s rating on Rotten Tomatoes, as I investigated, I found that this score did not accurately convey the content of the reviews themselves. In this video, I'd like to consider the top critics' reviews of the Rings of Power and the brutal truth hidden within. On Rotten Tomatoes, there are only a handful of critics' reviews listed, which contributed to the high score, so it's good to keep in mind that there are still many more entertainment avenues that have yet to add their review and score. A viewer strictly looking at the good tomato and high score given might be inclined to expect an entry worthy of the Lord of the Rings mythos. However, this is not the whole truth. A lot of these reviews are long and take their time in getting to the point, and I doubt many people have the time or inclination to read through all the way and will simply look at a headline and the score and think Rings of Power will deliver. But altogether, I found that when reading each article or post, neither the Rotten Tomatoes score nor the headlines themselves were able to accurately capture the nuance of their reviews. For example, as is the case with one of the 2 top critic reviews listed on Rotten Tomatoes, from RogerEbert.com, it is in the 8th paragraph down, after the reviewer states how gorgeous the show is, that we finally get to the critiques, where it says, quote, "There are some jaw-dropping vistas and elegantly designed creature effects to behold, but you can throw all the CGI money in the world at a series, and it won't make it more quickly paced or its characters more compelling." That's the Rings of Power's major failing in its early go, as its first episode functions as a somewhat dry, derivative prelude filled with endless scenes of politicking and elves droning on against green screens or elegantly furnished conference rooms. It's hardly the most exciting beginning to the series, with a frustrating amount of place setting and more 2-line characters than you can shake a palantir at. They then go on to say that things improve with episode 2, however, this is also followed up by more scathing critiques, stating, quote, "What hobbles the Rings of Power is its teasingly derivative design that evokes Jackson's trilogy while also asserting itself as something entirely new. Hayne and McKay want to have their cake and eat it too, styling this as a direct precursor to the films that generations of movie fans have come to love without pronouncing it pure canon. I'd have preferred a wholly new conceptualization of Middle-earth rather than trying to ride the dragon tails of its inspirations." So while the reviewer began by praising the visuals of the series, stating that there were jaw-dropping vistas and elegantly designed creature effects to behold, even this high praise was contradicted when they said that the series also suffers from instances of flat TV lighting, and some of the green screen effects don't instill the same sense of awe as the Jackson films. And it turns out that as I did more research, this review would only be the first of many that failed to support any belief in the accuracy of such a high Rotten Tomatoes rating. These reviews are often split, while mentioning the impressive scale and grand vistas, but also noting that the visuals at times suffered. And what matters the most to me in a review are the comments regarding the story, characters, and dialogue. And from these early reviews, it sounds like I'll be disappointed. Another top critic review is by Inverse, who gave the first 2 episodes a high score, with their review stating that those episodes are brimming with some of the most awe-inspiring images that have ever been brought to life on TV. Yet shortly thereafter, it's followed by a significant concern, quote, "What's less clear after the Rings of Power's first 2 installments, though, is whether or not it will ultimately be able to match the narrative elegance of the live-action J.R.R. Tolkien adaptations that have preceded it. To many who are like myself, the narrative is what matters the most, while the strength of visuals can only carry any piece of media so far. This is evident in the plethora of pretty films that are an absolute bore to watch. Inverse is later more specific in the narrative issues, saying, quote, "At times, the show's disparate storylines feel like they are only connected by the vague notion that evil may be just around the corner. Consequently, there are moments, especially in the Rings of Power's second episode, when the series' continent-spanning structure feels frustratingly unwieldy." However, these critiques are bogged down in a wordy review that quickly attempts to go back to positivity, saying later that while the Rings of Power feels a little narratively uneven right now, the same cannot be said for its aesthetic and impressive visual style. As the reviews continue to pour in, I'm sure that at least some variations will occur. For instance, I was especially surprised by Entertainment Weekly, who had released several exclusive articles intended to hype and promote the series and its characters. Their review from its headline all the way to the end of the article proved itself to be a brutal condemnation of the series. While I'm cautious to give too much weight to any one article, and while I have learned to generally not put stock in reviews by mainstream sources, I am pleasantly surprised to see so much honesty from this mainstream news outlet, and the attempt to give credit wherever it's due, while also avoiding the tendency to sugarcoat the show's most obvious issues. I believe that a good, helpful review is at its core honest. It's not sugar-coated, but it's also not scathing just to be scathing. What I appreciate are nuanced takes, openness with positive points and praise where it's warranted, but a willingness to be straightforward when it comes to covering the problems. However, at the end of the day, a review is based upon the writer's own individual likes and dislikes, and what appeals personally to one individual can be vastly different from the next person. While differing opinions can each be valid, a single collective score as found on sites like Rotten Tomatoes rarely paints an accurate picture of whether a certain production will appeal to you as the viewer. So after you've gotten to see the show, if you choose to do so, I encourage each of you to continue to cherish nuance. Things are rarely ever black and white, and I'm sure this series will have several enjoyable elements along with its many problems. I feel it's important to not give in to either blind hype or loathing for a product before its release, and to continue to seek out those in the fandom and even in the mainstream media who demonstrate a resolve to stay honest and fair in their reviews. As the Rings of Power series unfolds and winds through its subsequent seasons, I'll continue to look for those reviewers who maintain that determination to show the studios who control our beloved IPs what they should do with these franchises, and to point out exactly where they are failing. But I'm curious to know what you think of the reviews and marketing for Amazon's Rings of Power. Are you excited for this series, dreading it, or somewhere in between? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Middle-earth and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. Thank you all so much for your support. And as always, have a very nerdy day.